Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 480 for the 31st of December 2017. Goodbye, good riddance. No, goodbye 2017. Richard Saunders here with you from the San Francisco Bay Area, where I'm having a little bit of a break, but not from the Skeptic Zone, of course. Coming up on this week's show, a trip downtown, a couple of trips downtown. I catch up with a very dear old friend of mine, Moriel Schottlender, who I met many years ago. She was doing science videos, how to test for the speed of light, how to measure the speed of light using chocolate bars in a microwave oven, the Doppler effect with ducks in a bathtub, all sorts of fun things. Now, about 10 years ago, Moriel wrote an item online about the flat Earth and 10 reasons how you can tell the world really isn't flat. Well, bizarrely enough, of course, over the last year, 6 months to a year, the subject has come up again, and her article on Popular Science is getting many, many hits and comments and all the rest of it. So I go downtown to Union Square in San Francisco, catch up with Moriel, and we have a nice chat about the flat Earth, conspiracy theories, and why it's all come back again. Following that, it's an article from the Skeptic magazine at Skeptics.com.au, written by Tim Mendham, about skeptics in the pub. Recently there was a survey, a worldwide survey of skeptics in the pub, and this is a report on some of the results. It's a good guideline, a good indication, helpful advice for anybody wanting to start a skeptics in the pub. Then to round off the show, I head back downtown to San Francisco to near Pier 39 and visit the Musée Mécanique, and which I do every time I'm here. It's a fantastic place. Arcade games going back over a century. I always play Indiana Jones pinball machine, always. My favourite pinball machine of all time. But this time I go and put a few coins into one of the fortune-telling machines, just for a bit of fun to round off the show, to round off 2017. A big thank you and a big shout-out to Eugenie Scott here in the Bay Area, where my wife and I had a wonderful dinner with Jeannie. We always catch up with Jeannie whenever we're here. And I think, if we're very lucky, next week we might be going up the coast a little bit to visit some of the giant sequoia forests. If we do, I'll bring you a report. But now it's time for me to run upstairs. 2 flights of stairs into the kitchen and have some of the leftover clam chowder, the famous San Francisco clam chowder, a favourite of mine for the last 20 years. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Downtown San Francisco, we're in Union Square, and we're sitting just on the edge of an ice rink, and they're just preparing for the next group of gleeful people to come out ice skating. I'm with Moriel. Hello, Moriel.
Hello. It's so great to have this going on now, especially in front of an ice rink. And
yeah, it's a nice day. It's warm, isn't it? It's surprising. It's about 10 degrees warmer than I would expect.
Well, it is San Francisco, so I think that's what usually you expect.
Now, we've known each other for many years. We first met, 9 years ago at the Amazing Meeting.
It did, yeah.
But we were corresponding before then because you were doing various things online, demonstrating science concepts in your bathtub.
That's right. That's right.
With a rubber duck.
I did, yeah. That's one of those. And then chocolate, measuring the speed of light with chocolate bars.
Yep.
Yeah, I should get back to those. I ate a lot of chocolate when I did that.
You're running a site called Smarter Than That.
I was.
Yes, that's
yeah.
right. Yeah. So, just before we get into the topic, which I know you love to talk about, which is the flat Earth, what are you doing at the moment?
So I work as a software engineer at the Wikimedia Foundation. So I kind of did a little shift from physics, but I don't think it was a lot of shift. Some of my friends disagree. But so I do that now for the past 4 years or so. I took a little shift. I went to do my master's in computer science, and then I went to an internship in the Wikimedia Foundation, and I just fell in love with it. So
Wikimedia, and for those people who don't know, what is that all about, the Wikimedia Foundation?
So the Wikimedia Foundation operates... Wikipedia is probably the site that everybody knows, but we have about 11 other also projects like Wiktionary and Wikispecies and Wikisource.
Wiktionary? I'm not Wiktionary.
Yes.
What's that?
It's a free dictionary, of course.
Well, so, I guess so.
Of course, in the spirit of Wikipedia. So there's actually 11 projects, including WikiCommons, where you can get
of course.
Pictures. So we operate all of those projects. We support the communities. We build the infrastructure that allows, for the sharing of free information for the world. And I just fell in love with the mission, and I thought I can support that. So.
And this is based here in San Francisco, right?
So we're actually all over the world. The headquarters are here in downtown San Francisco, and we have staff all over the world. I'm trying to remember if I probably won't remember all the countries, but all over the world. The buildings, the actual offices and stuff are here in San Francisco.
That's very interesting. Now let's get to this topic, because some years ago, 2008, I think you were telling me, you wrote something online about the flat Earth, and unbelievably, this has come back to bite you, hasn't it?
Oh my gosh. I didn't even expect that one would be the one to come and bite me, because I didn't even write it as, an article that would be contentious. I wrote it as a tongue-in-cheek article to explain to the people who already know that the world is round, just kind of lay out an explanation of how we knew it. It wasn't because of, Columbus finding the Americas, obviously. So how did we know it, and how far back did we know it? From the Greek time, and how did we know it? That was the point of it. And so I wrote an article, 10 ways to know the Earth is not flat. And I basically laid out 10 ways that we in human societies down to thousands of years ago knew that the world is not only not flat, but it is round, and we can measure its circumference.
Yes.
And I published that. And that gained a little bit of attention for several years. A little bit of really weird attention. I started getting comments from... some were trolls, and some, I think, were actually members of the Flat Earth Society. I could never really figure out.
It's hard to tell the difference.
I know. I think some of them, did this just to stir the waters. But there were people who actually believed the Earth is flat. So then there were a lot of arguments in the comments. And this was in 2008. And every year or so, I'd had a wave where I suddenly would get 20, 30, up to even 50 comments a day on that ridiculous argument.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no words.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's the running joke, isn't it? In the skeptical community, it's the running joke. Oh yes, flat Earth, of course, ha ha ha. But I guess the joke is on us now in the last 6 months. So
yeah, I mean. At some point, I decided I'd never do that. But at some point, I just decided to close down the comments on that post. I think there's something like 6,000 comments on that post already. And, I mean, it just became completely out of control. And I didn't feel like there was really much contribution. It just kept on going the same argument. So I just closed the comments. And then a couple of months after that, which was, I think, 6 months ago or maybe a year ago, something like that, I don't know if you remember, but the rapper B.O.B., right?
I think that was him, yeah.
Yeah, he started going off with, flat Earth wise comments, whatever, baiting, specifically I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson, but baiting the scientific community to answer back. And there was a little bit of noise online, but of course Neil deGrasse Tyson has better things to do, so he answered on Twitter and then dropped it. But then I got an email from Popular Science, and they were saying, hey, this is, came up to the news again, and we're wondering if we can republish, the article that you wrote. And of course I said yes. I was really honored. It was really cool. And I was like, sure.
Yeah.
Of course. I'm like, let me think of... No, yes, of course. So they did, and they put it up, and it was really cool. And I knew that, if I got on my website, 5,000 or something comments, I'd probably get a few more comments on Popular Science publication. And of course I did. Like on Twitter, people started to, either thank me or argue. Most of the arguments, of course, were people who seemed to not have read the article because, they argued, and then all I had to do was read number 3. Like, but the Earth isn't flat because blah. Oh, and number 9. Which is great when you make a list, right? An article that is a list of things that you can refer to the answers really easily. So then, ever since then, every time anyone, and it seemed to be happening lately, raises the issue of flat Earth, I seem to be the easy target to approach with either, you don't know what you're talking about, the world is flat, and then weird arguments, or, hey, share this, whatever. So one of the things that are happening is that, in Twitter, you can mention someone, and then the rest of the thread, that someone will, remain mentioned. So I would get, in kind of waves, ever since the publication, I would get just conversations of people that are saying, of course the world isn't flat because, and then, arguments that they think I never heard before, but of course...
You've heard them all, right?
I mean, there's a limit to how many arguments you can put up to the Earth is flat. So I just let it happen at some point. I'm like, thanks, that's awesome, and just let them...
The article in Popular Science, which is your writing, that's still online at Popular Science.
It is.
We'll certainly link to that in the show notes.
Oh, yeah.
And what's the number one thing that the flat earthers would come, right off the bat? What would they say? What's their biggest argument?
Oh, they would say I don't know what I'm talking about, and the government is just lying to everybody. I don't know if I saw one single. Oh, we have a.
I think that's the one world government flying overhead right
That's
now.
Right. They heard me. They heard you speak. That's. I mean, I can't say that I've seen one specific argument. I think I've seen one specific method, because I think that what they do is, no matter what you say, they will say that, the government is behind it, or that you are the shill of the government.
So it's quite often they revert to a conspiracy theory very quickly. Yeah,
they start with that.
They start with that.
Yeah, they don't even go by or most of the times they don't even go enough by let's argue with the science, like, oh no, but how come this is true, right? They would start with that, something very small, like, for example, the reason that you see boats in the horizon, right? That the boats, in one of the arguments is that boats in the horizon rise up.
Yeah.
So you see them rise up, right? Yeah. And then you say, well, obviously. One of the things they'll say is that, no, your eyes are just not very good. I know, it's weird.
I was just shaking my head in disbelief then.
And I got that a lot. And, I wear glasses, so they're not wrong. But, we do use, binoculars or stuff like that. So they would say something that is fairly ridiculous. So they would say something like, no, actually, that's the distance. See, if you look at the distance. And then when I show, and I think in the article there's even, like, drawn out angled things to show it.
Yeah.
So when I show that, even if that's true, even if, your eyes specifically can't see it, let's look at, just optics, like the science of, the physics of optics, then they immediately go to no, it can't be, it's a conspiracy, but then, and they jump to the next one, like, when you go on a plane, you actually don't see it this way, and then you say, yes, you do. No, it's the windows that are or whatever. So they just jump from one to...
It's that bad?
Yes.
I mean, I guess that has to be, because in the back of my head I'm thinking, they must have some halfway convincing arguments, but they really don't. No,
they don't. And you know what? There are some that also... I encounter a lot of people that are either actual flat earthers or that are expanding Earth theorists.
Whoa. Steady on. Hang on. I'm getting my head around one thing. Expanding Earth. What's this all about?
Oh, gosh. It's...
sit down, listeners. It's all right.
So the expanding Earth theory, which is not a really scientific theory, but okay, says that the Earth started out smaller, and then it is expanding like a balloon, and that is the reason for the shift, the movements from Pangea to the continents, and that is actually what moves the crust and whatever.
But at least they say the Earth is a sphere, right?
Yes, but it's hollow.
It's hollow. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Right.
Now here's the thing. So I did a bachelor's in physics.
Yeah.
And I think in the first month of electrodynamics, we solved for what would happen if the Earth was hollow, and it took us about a homework assignment to realize that is ridiculous. Right? One homework assignment. So true, it was in college level, but it was like the first year of physics. So it's absolutely ridiculous. It's no words. But they seem to be very related with kind of the flat Earth. Obviously, they don't agree with them. So one thing this way, but they use a lot of the common things, right? They use a lot of the, oh no, the government is lying to you, or we are being dismissed, even though we know the truth of the matter, even though they will not be able to solve for the fairly easy, it's not that horrible equations of, okay, how would gravity work, if the Earth was hollow?
Yeah.
Right? Which you can do without much...
Well, the mass would be completely different, surely.
Well, yeah, you just, you have a lot less mass, for one, but... it's ridiculous. It's just completely,
I know, we're going down the rabbit hole already. But what is it about, especially about the flat Earth, what is it so appealing in the last 6 months, the last year? Why are so many people jumping on the bandwagon as a cable car goes by over there? There it goes. Why are so many people jumping on this bandwagon? What's the appeal?
I think we have... just a movement fairly recently in the last couple of years of just anti-science, and I think that affects that a lot. I think people are anti-intellectualism, right, and anti-science is just rising, and for people who are who look for something to lash onto, to kind of to say, okay, that is wrong. It's an easy one, right? Because you look out the window, the world does look flat.
Well, that's what they say. They say, I look around me and I go to the ocean and I look out and it doesn't look round to me.
That's right.
And you and I and all our listeners are going, well, duh.
Right. Yes. What I find really weird in that is that I could have understood that in 100 years ago even. But nowadays, you have telescopes that can look at other planets in your own apartment. You don't even need to do anything, and you see that other planets are round. And, you go on a plane, and you see the curvature of the Earth from the plane. It's so accessible now, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that the flat Earth thing is not as many people. I think it's a small...
I think a lot of people just do it for fun.
I think there are probably, trolls mixed in with the people who do believe. I also think that some of them, and this is something that I noticed not just with flat Earth, just with general pseudoscience, I think some of the people that we argue with are actually kids that try to learn things, and they fall into sometimes traps that they don't understand, and it seems very logical, and they read things that they don't know how to analyze yet, and they latch onto that and think, oh, the adults dismiss me because I'm a kid. So I see a lot of those, and it's kind of like the forums that I'm in. And it's hard because you don't want to, completely discourage, the kid from learning. You don't want to say, dude, you have no idea what you're talking about, because then they won't go out and, try to learn. But on the other hand, you kind of do want them to understand that they're not doing it right. So those arguments for me are the hardest, because I do see potential, and I'm trying.
Yeah.
But the rest are, there are trolls, and there are, just cranks out there. There's people who, no matter what you do, will believe that, 9/11 was planned, and, the Earth is flat, and NASA is lying to you, and aliens are in the...
we certainly get back once again to people just default to conspiracy theory, and it sort of covers their every argument in the end, no matter what argument you put up. If your argument is obviously part of the conspiracy. It reminds me, some months ago I was on radio doing a radio segment, and the host said to me, "Okay, Richard, you've got 30 seconds. Convince us why the world is round."
Oh, God.
All right, Moriel, you've got 30 seconds. Why is the world round?
Well, luckily, I wrote an article about it. So you can just go ahead and read it.
That's the best answer, I think.
I think so. I honestly, I stopped arguing with flat earthers because I see all the arguments over and over, and they're being answered, not just in my article. There's a lot of other articles. They're being answered, and usually when someone says that nowadays, they don't care about the answer.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So they're just not.
And I wonder if it's had its heyday. 2 months ago I was hearing a lot about the flat Earth. Not so much now. I think these things come and go, but that it's there at all is still amazing.
You know why you heard about it? I think it was either 2 months or maybe a month ago. You know why it was in the news? Because there's a guy who decided, from the Flat Earth Science Society or something, decided to shoot himself from a cannon in order to prove that the world is flat. So...
Good luck.
Yes,
Now, let's stand up, and we walk over to the gate here, the fence, and look at this. We have all these kids and people all now merrily skating on their... Hi, kids.
Hello.
Don't fall over.
There's no promises to that.
Moriel, great to catch up with you once again here in San Francisco. And, here's to the flat Earth.
Here's to going back to Australia over the curve, right? Over the edge of the Earth.
Over the edge. Oh, I better be careful.
Yeah, you better be careful now.
I got it. Look at this now. Are you okay? Yeah.
It never ends. A friend starts talking about his new Reiki master, and someone else posts about another all-natural cancer cure that they don't want you to know about. As skeptics, we dedicate a lot of time trying to protect those around us. But there's a way you can reach millions. Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia is a group that is working to keep the best skeptical information at everyone's fingertips, in all languages. Join us. Training is self-paced and fun, and we have our very own super-secret Facebook group. You'll be educating the world in your sleep. To find out more, email us at gsowteam@gmail.com. Guerrilla Skepticism. The time is now.
Music by bensound.com.
From the pages of the Australian Skeptic magazine, The Skeptic, Volume 37, Number 4, for December 2017. An article by Tim Mendham, all about skeptics in the pub. Now, long-time listeners to the Skeptic Zone are very familiar with the reports, particularly by Maynard at Sydney Skeptics in the Pub. Skeptics in the Pub is a lot of fun. It's relatively easy to put together, providing you can find the right venue, of course. And it's certainly worth trying out in your location. The article says, Australia has had a close association with the history of those informal gatherings known as Skeptics in the Pub. Tim Mendham reports on the highs and lows and current state of the Skeptics in the Pub movement. Wikipedia defines Skeptics in the Pub as, quote, an informal social event designed to promote fellowship and the social networking among skeptics, critical thinkers, free thinkers, rationalists, and other like-minded individuals. It provides an opportunity for skeptics to talk, share ideas, and have fun in a casual atmosphere, and discuss whatever topic or issues come to mind, while promoting skepticism, science, and rationality, end quote. Now, of course, that leaves out the key ingredient, which is the pub. Meeting in a convivial environment with drinks and hopefully a meal, a speaker and probably some interesting, intriguing and or rude questions means the venue has to lend itself to such activities. And generally not charging for admission means there aren't many places where such gatherings can take place. Some gatherings are quite small. A table in the corner may do, and others require a room dedicated to the event. So your choice of venue will very much decide what sort of meeting you intend it to be. Ye olde pubby. Well, the Y-E is actually pronounced the, but anyway. The Skeptics in the Pub movement is generally agreed to have started in London in 1999, and that's where the Australian connection raises its head. Dr. Scott Campbell was Associate Professor and Reader in Philosophy at the University of Nottingham. Equally pertinent is that he was born in Tasmania, got his doctorate from the University of New South Wales, and was on the committee of Australian Skeptics Inc. in Sydney during the mid-90s. He also spoke at the Third World Skeptics Convention in the year 2000, at that time the largest skeptical event ever held in Australia. The London Skeptics in the Pub started in February 1999, with the first speaker being Wendy Grossman, the founder and editor of the UK Skeptic magazine. Campbell based the idea around philosophy in the pub and science in the pub, two groups which had been running in Australia for some time. The first London Skeptics in the Pub attracted 30 attendees. It is still going, and now jointly by many others. Wikipedia suggests, quote, more than 100 active satellite chapters around the world, including more than 30 in the US and more than 40 in the UK, end quote. Calling them satellites is misleading. While some Skeptics in the Pub are activities run by more established skeptical groups, one of the key aspects of Skeptics in the Pub is that they are informal and run their own programs. The current state. The Glasgow Skeptics decided to investigate the true status of the phenomenon and did a global survey of Skeptics in the Pub managers and organisers. Glasgow Skeptics itself was formed in 2009 and runs 2 pub meetings per month, as well as other meetings and lectures. The Glaswegians contacted 115 organisations around the world via the Skeptics in the Pub's own websites, Facebook, Twitter, email, etc., whatever means the particular Skeptics in the Pub used. They heard back from 53 of them. In the UK, Ireland, they approached 53 and had 28 responses. Both sets of responses can be seen to be a good representative sample of the entirety of the Skeptics in the Pub movement. One issue is knowing whether those Skeptics in the pubs that did not respond were either inactive or just a bit apathetic. It can be a frustration to would-be attendees if they visit a meetup page and see little to indicate whether a meeting is on or not. It is even more frustrating if they have to take the plunge and turn up to a Skeptics in the Pub meeting to find no one's there. To a certain extent, however, it is understandable. Skeptics in the Pub are launched with the best of intentions, but because of various factors, such as there just isn't an audience or key organisers move on, they can fall by the wayside. There have been various like that in Australia, though currently there are 19 groups listed in the pages of this magazine, most of which, but not all, are active in holding meetings and sometimes take on more activist roles. Of the UK groups, 5 had only one organiser, which puts groups at risk of fading if that one person decides enough is enough, gets transferred or, for whatever reason, pulls out of the organiser role. Conversely, 8 groups have 5 or more organisers, which implies a good backup for all contingencies, and hopefully not many arguments over direction. 34 of the Skeptics in the Pub who responded have Facebook pages, and 20 have Facebook groups. 3 uses Twitter, 32 Meetup, and 9 uses YouTube, and 3 each for both Instagram and Google+. 6 groups frequently or always pay for advertising, and 5 occasionally, 7 rarely, and the vast majority, 31, never use paid advertising. But they do use a wide range of media to promote events, apart from Facebook, Twitter and Meetup. There is promotion via other groups, asking speakers to promote their own talk, newsletters, posted Facebook events using keywords, flyers, selecting a group of high-profile speakers during the year to encourage a regular audience, and, of course, word of mouth. One even resorted to using posters in the pub's toilets. With Facebook followers, 9 groups had 250 or less, and 4 had more than 2,000. The rest are largely gathered around the 200 to 1,000 mark. So how often do they meet? At the bottom end, 10 groups hosted 5 or less events per year. At the top end, 2 groups hosted more than 30, i.e. close to 3 per month. The vast majority host between 6 and 15 events, so we can say monthly meetings are the norm. As to the size of the meeting, 5 groups had an average attendance of 10 people or less, with 7 averaging more than 50. The rest are fairly evenly staggered between 11 and 50. In the UK, the average donation made by attendees is £2 and 70 pence. Words of wisdom. What advice did they offer to those who would like to set up as Skeptics in the Pub or get theirs running more smoothly? Consistency of timing and format is an important aspect of keeping audiences interested. Quote, same venue, same place, same date, end quote, said one UK group. One Australian Skeptics in the Pub put it, quote, promote early and promote often. Get on the podcast, especially for the bigger events like Skepticamp. We rarely, if ever, pay for promotion. Share links into the regional skeptical groups. We regularly get people from interstate for our Skepticamp. Get people sharing the events, end quote. Another Australian group, quote, tip number 1, develop an ongoing relationship with the manager of the venue. Always bear in mind it is a business for them, and holding your event has to be commercially viable, particularly if they are putting on extra staff for the event, end quote. Being properly prepared is a regular suggestion, especially with appropriate seating, theatre style or dinner, and ensuring you have the correct AV for all occasions. One group suggested providing laptops for presenters to make sure they are compatible with the venue. Having a well-thought-out checklist for both prior and during the event is obviously vital. Make sure everyone knows what they have to do and are prepared. Finding good speakers can be a challenge. Generally, recommendations for attendees or committee members is a good starting point. Once you have one, preparing them is important so they are aware of how much time they have and what they can expect from the audience, and what level of information they will need to have. Most skeptical audiences are pretty well educated, have an interest in science, but a few have PhDs in advanced mathematical theory. Always have a plan B, says one New Zealand group, and most importantly, as one Danish group suggests, quote, a good place with decent beer, end quote. Fun and games. Apart from all the quantitative stuff and good advice, the Glasgow survey allowed respondents free rein to wax lyrical on issues they've faced. Sometimes you wonder why they do it. For instance, for one New Zealand group, quote, that was a cold, rainy night when there was me and one other person who turned up, end quote. That can be particularly embarrassing when you have a high-profile speaker who arrives and there are more people behind the bar than in the audience. One European group reported on a particularly challenging event, quote, "We had a skeptical event about Satanism, where two very drunk, bona fide Satanists turned up and ended up in a drunk fight. It was interesting, but the talk was very good," end quote. If only they could all be as exciting as that. Many thanks to Brian Ego of the Glasgow Skeptics, glasgowskeptics.com, for organising this survey and supplying us with the results. Brian gave a presentation covering the survey at a recent QED convention in Manchester, from which some of this article is drawn. And that report can be found in the latest issue of the Skeptic magazine, available at skeptics.com.au, volume 37, number 4 for December 2017, along with many, many other fine articles. And just as an aside, I believe it was 2003 when yours truly founded Sydney Skeptics in the Pub. It was 2003 or 2004. Since then, we've met just about every month in one pub or another. We've moved about 4 or 5 different pubs around the city. Currently, we're at the Occidental near Wynyard, where I think we've found probably the best venue so far. And that reminds me, coming up in next month or the month after, we'll be having a skeptical trivia night at Skeptics in the Pub. Stay tuned for more information.
Hi, this is Dr. Pamela Gay from Astronomy Cast. Each week, Fraser Kane and I take our listeners on a fact-based journey through the cosmos. With our weekly podcast, we explain not just what we know, but how we know what we know about this universe that we share. Check us out at astronomycast.com and look for us in iTunes, Google Play, and wherever you download podcasts. See you online.
Downtown San Francisco. I'm just near the Ferry Building, which is at the end of Market Street. Those of you who know it, those of you who don't, well, I guess you can look at Google Maps. I'm going to walk along the Embarcadero past all the piers. It takes about half an hour or so. It's a pleasant stroll. The streetcars whizzing by me in the traffic. And I'll be heading for the Museum Mécanique. It's a fascinating place. It's full of old arcade games dating back a century or so. And here comes a cable car right now, or a tram, I should say. There it goes. The trams are different from the cable cars. But anyway, part of the attraction, or part of the interest of this museum I'm heading to, apart from the old pinball machines I used to play, are a collection of fortune-telling machines dating back decades. So let's visit the museum. Well, almost at the destination, the museum of the arcade games, but on the way, of course, a quick visit to Pier 39, the very famous tourist spot, where I'm delighted to say the sea lions are back in force. I'm looking at hundreds of sea lions basking on various pontoons here. Some years there are as few as 1 or 2, and this year they seem to be back with a vengeance. And along with the tourists, hundreds of tourists also. And here we are entering the Museum Mécanique entrance. Antique coin-operated arcade. Bustling with people. I've never seen so many people in here. It's quite incredible. Normally there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people running around, but this place is absolutely packed. And we'll see if we can find our fortune-telling devices. What's this one? Laughing Sal. The big laughing robot come doll. I see the first one here. Grandmother predictions. But it's got a queue. Everything's busy. We'll have a look around. Wizard predictions. Quarters only. So where they go? And it's a little like a Harry Potter wizard about 2 feet tall, I guess, with a magic hat. So I'll get my quarters out. And 50 cents a play, so the quarters go in, and the magician is moving his head around. The magic wand comes up. The hat lifts up, nothing under the hat. He looks around, hat goes down, taps the wand on the table. Tap, tap, another tap. The anticipation, what's happening now? Looking around, another tap. And a card falls out of the bottom of the machine. Here we go. I'll have to go over here where it's a bit more quiet to read it. In fact, I have to walk outside the venue on the other side. Goodness me, I've never seen it so packed. The Wizard's predictions, it says. Cultivate a sense of humour. That's always a good idea. It is dangerous to go through life thinking too much of the serious things. Have the fun you deserve. Don't overlook opportunities that require some imagination and daring. There may be certain circumstances when you should gamble with fate for the best results. If you lose, so what? Well, we read on. The experience gained could be worth far more than a state of indecision or no action at all. Whether married or single, you should never neglect romance. It should prove to be the real tonic, stimulating your activities, inspiring you with higher ideals, and putting a sparkle into your personality. Travel is not recommended. Oh boy, I'm in trouble. Travel is not recommended and may be better for you to remain in a familiar environment. I am in trouble. You'll be happier by entertaining relatives and friends than visiting them. Big trouble. Money should not be one of your particular problems, for likely you have learnt to save. You are lovely and are loved. So there you go. It must be true. And it says at the bottom, Musée, Mécanique, San Francisco, www.musee.com. I'll link to that in the show notes. Might dive back in and play Indiana Jones. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone throughout 2017, and for those old-timers, since 2008. It's hard to believe that in a few hours it'll be 2018, And that means the Skeptic Zone would have been produced and heard in 11 different years. Good grief. When I started this show, I was only 12. It seems like it. It seems like a long time ago the Skeptic Zone was kicked off, but it goes on into 2018. I wonder what 2018 will bring. Now, all of this year, I've been engaged with the help of some friends on a project about predictions, collating predictions since the year 2000 in Australia, published predictions by psychics, by psychics, you can't see the air quotes, and other seers. I'd hoped to have this whole project brought to an end by now, but it's so big and it takes so long to verify hundreds and hundreds of predictions. It really does. The Stranger Things Down Under group and I met once for a whole day, and we barely scratched the surface, just going through predictions to verify them, check them. Did they come true? Did they not? They're a bit wishy-washy. So the project has been extended by a whole year just to finish it. And indeed, when the project is finished, I don't think 2018 will factor in at all, because that's just more predictions to verify. I will see. Anyway, hopefully by the end of 2018, we'll be able to bring you the results of that long and detailed project. A big thank you to all my wonderful reporters throughout the years, especially the ones over the last year. I look forward to more fantastic reports in 2018. And a big thank you to all our sponsors. When I say sponsors, I mean you. The show actually doesn't have any sponsors. All the commercials you hear, the promotions, they're all free. I don't charge anything for that. It's what I think I do that for a service, a community service to the skeptical community for websites and other podcasts I think you should know about. The true sponsorship comes from people like you through Patreon and PayPal at skepticzone.tv, and you are the only reason the show keeps going, the people who do chip in. So I am very grateful. Thank you to all those lovely people, some for years now. Even if it's $1 or $3 or $5 or $20 a month, it means the show keeps going. But for now, for the last time in 2017, this is Richard Saunders signing off from the Bay Area, San Francisco. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. You can be part of the show by downloading the Voice Byte app at voicebyte.com and using the hashtag Skeptic Zone. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.